A warm welcome to all of you to this 72nd Rajagiri Round Table. The topic now we have selected is something very different from the topics that we have selected earlier. And this is about the emerging, phygital spaces, learning spaces across the world. So why this has happened is because we all know that the COVID situation created so many disruptions in education, and so many digital apps had to be suddenly used, and the infrastructure of the schools and colleges had to be stretched to the extreme level, or even new investments had to be made. So going ahead, we actually expect more such innovations to happen. And when you recall our childhood, even I remember in my 80s, there will be always be some part of the school which we always cherish and remember. So when we go back to the school after 10 or 20 years, we expect that to be there. It can be like a mango tree, or it can be a place where children used to have a small meeting or gathering, or the playground. So many places in the, except the classroom. For me, every other place was really very interesting, and the place where I cherished and enjoyed. So there will be a lot of spaces like that. So how to make those spaces? Like when I went to school after 20 years, I saw that the playgrounds were converted into buildings for various classes, because they had increased the intake of children, and the +2 was also started. So the whatever play area was there, most of them was converted into buildings. So brick and mortar. So that's a big issue that many schools will face, because there is always a lack of space compared to what is required. So today what we are trying to address is the changes in the there is change happening in the technology sector, there is changes happening in the architecture, there is changes happening in the industry. So naturally this should reflect also in our schools. So how best we can have this kind of blending happening, how we can go about bringing a change in the overall ambience in schools. So that is going to be our discussion today. And we were actually prompted by this topic when Mr. Pradeep Vittal from Dubai actually mooted this idea of a Phygital school. And he wrote about it in the December issue of December 2020 issue of Pallikudam. And so that was a inspiration for us to further look into this. And maybe we had one or two other articles also about phygital spaces emerging in the workplace and all the other areas. So today we'll be looking at how the learning spaces can become more interactive, how best we can utilize it in such a way that every corner becomes a learning experience. So, and also how the digital platform can be blended to the requirements of any school. Let it be a very high-end international school, or let it be a medium level school in which I studied, or it can be even a very low level. So we'll be addressing all those issues in the coming 2 hours. And we'll start off with Pradeep Vittal, and let's explore the, I'll introduce the other speakers as we go by. So Pradeep Vittal has also written a book on school design, and he has done some good, extremely good work in the area of school design. So we look forward to some very good insights from Pradeep Vittal, and he's based in Dubai. And let's.
Thank you. Hello, thank you, Sri Kumar. Am I audible? Is it clear?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. I'll pick up from where Sri left. Sri very correctly pointed out the kind of influence that educational environment has on an individual in terms of his skill sets, in terms of his personality, in terms of his behavior patterns. And then as teachers and educators, we are really in the very, very key position to mold our future generation. So my study and research has been into how to create educational environment conducive for all the future requirements and our future educational setups. I will share the screen with you and share a few of my findings and slides. And then I will let Sri open up the forum for further discussion. This is a slide that I have prepared, and the topic that was given to me was to identify, defining the need and nature of digital learning spaces. That's the topic that I am going to share and discuss with you. When in 4 decades ago, mid 70s, when I was in school, I was faced with an environment where the space was only physical. I had my classrooms, I had my teachers, I had my school corridors, I had my school building, and that's it. I came back. And then I was fortunate to live in a campus called Indian Institute of Technology, where library was a key element for me. So I used to go straight to the library again in the four walls to do some learning myself. So that was the physical environment in 1970s and mid 70s. Slowly, as technology progressed, as human beings started bringing in more innovations in all industries, we had the advent of internet. In mid 1980s, we had a full-fledged internet into the market, and knowingly and unknowingly, we were living in a phygital environment. It was not defined, but we were bound to live in a space where internet and telecommunication and GPS all slowly became part and parcel of our life. We cannot detach it from our life. If we don't have an internet for 10 minutes, we will be in a kind of a black hole. That's the kind of situation that we are in now. So to really understand and to take you through my research, I want to explore how we can make use of this opportunity, which we instead of the technology leading us somewhere, we need to be in sync with the technology and to make use of it. If we have to do integration of digital environment in schools, we need to really relook at what we mean by education. Now, I read a lot of journals, a lot of articles, and a lot of versed individuals trying to understand and define what 21st century learning requirements are. For me, if I summarize, I would put it into connecting minds, creating the future, opportunity, sustainability, mobility, hands-on learning and experimentation, and creativity. So in addition to all our basic subjects that we teach in our schools, all our teachers and educators are trying really hard to inculcate one of these fundamentals into the children. Now, when we talk about collecting minds and creating the future, we would like to inculcate good habits. We would like to inculcate collaboration, teamwork, morality. The reason why I'm sharing all this as a starting slide for our digital environment is to take you through the journey that we are all going through and to use the digital learning environment and to come up with something very innovative. That's the whole objective. Second, we are trying to create opportunity for your new generation. We are trying to create maker spaces. We are trying to create a sports environment. We are trying to create musical environment. How do we create all this using digital technology? That's the attempt that we are going to make today. If we take it to the next level of understanding sustainability, how do we teach environmental protection? How do we teach reduce, reuse, and recycle? How do we teach renewables? And how do we teach grow green? Whether we should introduce hydroponics or green walls in a classroom, whether we need to have a solar panel along the roof of the existing schools, whether we need to have a water catcher next to the all these are the things, all these are experimentation that we are having now in our educational build environment. We are also having a tremendous technology innovations in terms of visual reality, artificial intelligence. We have multiple products available in the market. We are using big data, knowingly, unknowingly. We are using geographic information systems. We have Wi-Fi everywhere. We have learning happening anywhere and anytime. How do we modify or use this into existing school environment? That's the attempt of my research. We also need hands-on learning and experimentation. We need to teach how to play guitar. We need to teach children how to hike. We need them to touch and feel nature. We need to develop maybe dramatic skills. We need to have electronic skills amongst our children, all to take care of the future job market. We don't know what job market and how many professions they need to change in their career. We need to train them in multiple skill sets which are very close to human beings in terms of creative endeavors. How do we create a space for a pottery in the classroom? How do we create a kind of a lathe machine integrated into the existing classrooms? We are having all these kind of debate in this part of the world, and schools want to convert each classroom as a STEM learning environment. Instead of having isolated experimentation labs, they want everything to happen in a single classroom. With all these human physical requirements, we have a kind of onslaught of technology now. We have digital classrooms, we have display boards, we have video record captures, we have robots for cleaning the schools and buildings. We have Wi-Fi sensors for security systems. We have monitors and display of air quality, air conditioning systems, and BMS of a building already shown to the children to show how the building works. We have the supplies and inventory tracker for planning the resources in the classrooms. So we have a kind of a flurry of Internet of Things in the classroom. With all these, I would like to have a kind of analysis of what an ideal classroom should be. Whether we should teach the same kind of a technology innovations in the existing classroom with four walls and all the children facing a blackboard and teacher trying very hard for every child to be on par with a certain evaluation criteria, which will take them to the next grade. That's how we are now gauging our capabilities, children's capabilities, and that's the need of our education system. Now, what is happening is, in the existing scenario, we have each subject being taught in isolation. I know there have been very good attempts by educators and schools to integrate various modes of techniques and methodology to combine this into a blended learning environment. Now, as we proceed, when the technology and information is available anywhere, anytime, and on a touch of a button, we need to identify the synergies between, let's say, music and business. We need to identify synergies between science and design technologies. We need to understand synergies between humanities and art. Then we will try to create a kind of a new generation who can evaluate the existing information creatively, because we would like to give them a kickstart. They need not start from zero. We would like to encourage them to start from, let's say, 100 to reach to 1,000. How do we do that? If we look at the same typical classroom, we could bring up collaborative learning using Phygital technology. Now, when we combine collaborative learning and blended learning environments, our research and our projects that we have been doing, we found that it is very helpful for children if we break these four walls. If you see the dotted lines that I've shown here are the
now speaking came, but video stopped.
Hello, Sri, can you hear me? There was a disturbance in between.
Now video, how video is stopped?
Hello, hello, Sri, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
All right, all right. So, yeah.
Maybe all others, please mute the mic. No? Then it will be without disruption. Discussion can continue.
Thanks, Doctor. Thank you very much. Right. So we found that conventional classrooms, if you see the four walls and the washrooms attached, if we open up these classrooms and convert this into blended learning, we could experiment with various modules. Now, if you see a small, this is a small amphitheater that we have created inside the classroom with hydroponics inbuilt into the open air seating system. Now, This was the design, and this is the photograph of the actual live product that we have built. It connected artificial intelligence, it is connected to internet, it is connected to moisture controller, and hydroponics is taught in the classroom in a kind of a phygital environment. We also have an experimentation using Buckminster Fuller dome concept. This is the fundamental of architecture using modular elements, which is placed again in a zone which is very, very convenient for children to come in for meetings, discussions, and also learn about building technology. We can also have a makerspace concept inside. So again, if you see, this was a concept of our Buckminster Fuller dome design, and the photograph shows how it has been built on site. So we are using various modules and the phygital environment to create blended learning environment for the same density of students, but with project-based learning and collaborative learning. So if you take one classroom, one row of children can work on agricultural innovations in drone technology, for example. The second section can discuss on the business aspects of agriculture. The third team can discuss on the genetics of agriculture. And finally, as a group, all can come together in the open air theater as a forum to share the findings of each team and come to a conclusion of how agriculture can be taken forward as a business or as an R&D facility. Similarly, if we take it to the next level from classrooms to specialty classrooms, we would like to break the barriers between art and design, science, design technology, engineering, and robotics to bring everything together into a blended learning environment like this form. This form shows how the knowledge base can be shared and how the physical space can be shared to teach agriculture as an example. We could use the same available prototypes in terms of workspace, storages, products, Wi-Fi technology, the products available with various vendors. Now we have multiple vendors in the market to supply interactive screens, virtual reality, all can be brought together to create a very, very, very innovative work environment and study environment. Now, this is a project that I have already implemented in a outstanding school in Dubai, which shows a combination of STEM education with an additional M. Now, when I say additional M is the addition of morality in STEM education. So when you teach technology and robotics to children in these work cluster, we would like to bring ethical value and morality so that the scientists work for the human civilization and the benefit of the human civilization. So here, summarizing my findings, we found that creating cluster learning, project-based learning in terms of innovative forms, which makes children inquisitive and also happy, and connect them with modern technology in terms of Wi-Fi. Here, if you see, there is an interactive screen, and children can collaborate and talk to students all across the world, and also share their findings with the students in the next cluster. So this is a live project that we have implemented with this modern thought process. Finally, just another topic for our discussions would be, we have online classrooms, we have homeschooling. Our findings are the future schools will become a kind of interaction zones and a community hub and a focal point of the entire neighborhood, where children come for physical education, STEM learning, innovations, share their findings, and then go back home to do further evaluations. And teachers and educators like us will be there in the classrooms and also online to lead them to the next level of learning systems. So this was my findings and what I've been executing in this part of the world. And I will request Sri to take the discussions forum forward. And as we discuss further, we'll come up with more innovative ideas from all the team members that we have on board today. Thank you, Sri. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Pradeep. Actually, after seeing this, we feel like becoming children again, because we lost this opportunity to be in this kind of space. I remember our schools, it was all filled with walls, and only play areas were the playgrounds, and we never get the enough time to play. So that was the situation when we used to learn. So this looks a bit futuristic, but still, I'm sure that some of the elements will start being integrated into the design now itself. So we'll quickly go to the technical part of this. So we have Mr. Dr. G. Santosh Kumar. He's a professor of computer science at PSAT. So we'll learn from him what is the kind of infrastructure that will be required. What will be the things that the schools will have to take care of? Because once they implement something, it's not very easy to dismantle everything and then start afresh. So there needs to be a very holistic look at the digital infrastructure. So I think you are the right person to take this discussion forward.
Yeah. So hi to all. Thank you, Sri Kumar, for giving me an opportunity to interact with this galaxy of people. Creating a framework for digital infrastructure for schools. So this is the just the topic of discussion. So I'll be just throwing some random thoughts. Maybe further we will discuss on specific points. So thank you, Pradeep, for initiating this discussion. So when we think about a digital infrastructure framework for schools, we should think about schools and teachers being given a structure that allows them to identify where they are on the journey towards embedding digital technologies in teaching, learning, and assessing in their journey. So Pradeep was mentioning a lot of technologies that must be embedded in the teaching, learning, and evaluation process of the students. So we know due to pandemic, every education institution was shut down. Teachers and students were forced to switch to a new technology-enabled landscape all of a sudden. Yet somehow we realized the unique situation and quickly responded to it and managed a couple of gadgets, and then we are now back to the business. Now, this is the time to take stock of what we have learned and how we should go ahead, bringing more quality and making the teaching and learning process more enjoyable. The e-readiness of the institute or the schools is the primary thing that has to be evaluated and improved when we are thinking about digital framework for schools. E-readiness is primarily an indicator of the institution's capacity and preparedness to participate in the digital world. How strong we are in terms of ICT infrastructure and the mindset of the leadership, employees, and the stakeholders, including the students. So getting a high-speed internet connectivity and cloud-based infrastructure for teaching and learning is not that much difficult in our state. For example, Google Workspace is a good cloud infrastructure option for schools. How equipped the teachers are to prepare and deliver the curricula is the next important thing. The institutional help towards this to the teachers must come as a commitment. The help rendered by the leadership of the institutions to the teachers will eventually transform into a better sustainable ecosystem benefiting the students. The teachers must be regularly trained on the use of digital tools, including the software and hardware. Using tablet devices with a stylus and a simple note-taking software will be good enough to teach online effectively. The use of open source software shall be encouraged to cut down the institutional budget. The presence of education technology professionals will help in developing curricula based on pedagogy. So this is one part that is missing from schools. The presence of an educational technologist. How to generate or how to create curricula, right? So that we can digitally deliver that. The very presence of a teacher will boost students' confidence. So for that, we should concentrate on the original materials. rather than there are a lot of materials that is available on the internet, right? We can take it and we can build a course very quickly, but the very presence of the teacher will boost the confidence of the students. So we should concentrate on building original materials by our teachers and by the institution. So a digital repository that can be built and to keep for the purpose of reuse and tracking how we are going ahead with this type of technologies. A good listening with partnering institutions, nearby engineering colleges or universities would help build competencies in software and hardware infrastructure needed for this. So this is also to be explored because most of the technology related things, most of the schools may not be able to understand it or they may not be able to grasp it. So a listening with nearby engineering colleges or maybe partnering institute is of good use. So it is high time to bring in the competency-based teaching, learning, and assessment methodology in schools. So as Pradeep was rightly mentioning, project-based kind of a learning. Basically, after execution of a project, basically the student and the teacher will know what is the outcome of that learning, right? So a competency must be earned by the student after learning something. So this type of competency-based learning will be enabled by most of the digital tools that is available now. So that we have to explore more. So, for example, we can cultivate critical thinking in classrooms, right? So, be it offline or online. So, these things are missing from the schools. So, we should the digital technology actually will boost all these kind of methodologies. And another important point I just wanted to bring in is the digital wellness. The digital wellness of both students and teachers would be the next important pillar in this digital framework. So digital wellness is all about the use of digital tools in pursuit of personal goals in life, such as safety and health, social interaction, to manage digital workload, right? Nowadays, students are getting a lot of materials online, and they are overloaded basically with the materials. They don't know how to handle all these things, right? And the distraction happening while they are attending their classes, etc. And we are not aware, at least for now, the potential negative impact of excessive screen timing and addiction towards online media, games, etc. So we don't know. We have to make an assessment on that. And teachers should be aware on how to create a balance between using these devices in the classroom and engaging in offline activities. A maximum of 2 hours of sedentary screen time per day is generally advised by many experts for school kids. Also, the days are not too far from us to think of an activity like spending at least a week without digital devices at dinner is not too far. So with this random thoughts, I think I will stop for time being to give time for others.
Yes,
Thank you so much. Yeah.
yes. Thank you, Dr. Santosh Kumar. Actually, you raised 2-3 important points. One is the role of an educational technologist in the school. So there needs to be a person who knows how to blend the educational pedagogy with the technology. So
Exactly.
that I think you have defined as the educational technologist. And the positive thing that you said about is that you can build competencies based on digital tools. Then you can have critical thinking abilities built with digital tools. I think that the school principals are here. The leadership is there. They will actually talk more about it. And so before that, we'll go once again to a wonderland, maybe, because we have a person who is expert in AR and VR. He is Mr. Girish Narayan. He has 2 businesses, one in Dubai and other in Bangalore. So he's representing now as the Bangalore part of his business, Resurgent AV Solutions. And he is the co-founder and director. So let's hear from him. What is the technology that the service providers are giving to the schools?
Thank you very much, Sri Kumar, for this kind introduction, and I'm delighted to be part of this elite panel. And I hope I can add value to this. So what we do is we come from a position of integrating these solutions within a learning environment, right? So let me try and see if I can, share my screen very quickly. Okay, I hope, are you able to see the screens? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I don't think there is a better word or a quote than this in the pandemic. I remember Sri Kumar went back to the school and he defined the trees and all that, and what your memories would be by all that replacing with buildings or brick and mortar, right? So, and I strongly believe this, it is not the strongest of the species that survive, not the intelligent, but the people who are able to adapt, or the creatures that are able to adapt to the current scenario. If this pandemic, we have all got adapted to phygital way of looking at things. It's not only in the learning environment, even family are meeting phygitally now, right? So you are sitting in a remote location. My mother is 75 years old now. She has got used to looking at a TV and speaking, right? And how many of us would even dream about that a few years ago, right? She was even reluctant to use a telephone. Now she's jumped from nothing to looking at a TV, without realizing there's a camera and all that which is out there, right? So it's the reality today, and I think the pandemic has actually shifted that phygital move very, very rapidly. Okay, again, to quote on this, some may like it, some may not like it, but if you got to survive, you got to be responsive to that particular change, right? So coming from a technology field, I think it's better to adapt very, very quickly, right? So what do? We actually provide these kind of solutions to the schools and education institutions across, from a kindergarten to higher education. And our success really comes when we work very, very closely with people like Pradeep, who can design this whole space, and then we are able to integrate that into this, right? So the challenges that today the teachers face is the adaptability to the technology, right? So it's not only about the students, but about now really the challenge would be to get the teachers to adapt to this technology, right? So imagine today a seventh grader or a fifth grader at home is used to 4K content with his TV, with his display, with his gamification, with his games, and he comes back to a school or a college and you get totally bored with the kind of things that you present in a classroom, right? Whereas if the student or if the kid is at home, he is now interacting with the 4K content. He can control everything through a handheld device. And now you come to the school where the teacher is using the good old way of teaching, and what you call as attention deficiency syndrome attacks very, very quickly, right? Because all of a sudden you are now shifting back to saying, what is this? This is so boring. So it's very, very important that these technologies are incorporated within the training and the classroom solutions, so that it becomes extremely interesting for the students to learn. So as you can see from the picture here, this is like a wearable headset, and there are enough and more library and content that is available free on the world, on multiple portals, that a student can actually wear this and understand in complete augmented reality and or virtual reality, learning about a particular thing. Like for example, if I need to make a tour of Taj Mahal, right? Or if I need to make a tour of one of the monuments or a temple in India, you can actually wear this, and the student can get not only the audio and video, but a completely immersive way of looking and walking through that whole experience. That actually provides what I call as a retention power and a recall power much, much better, and in line with what they are doing at home. As I said, remember that they were always involved with high quality content at home. That's the kind of thing that we need to bring it up in the schools and colleges. Right, and there are also co-spaces, the multiple levels of online platform that are available today to create the 3D environments, right? So a student can actually create the whole environment using the programming, softwares and stuff like that, and create a complete 3D environment. And this 3D environment can actually be, brought back into the class. Like the homework could be, can you actually give me a complete metro, how a metro rail travels from point A to point B? The whole thing can be actually produced on a co-space work in a 3D environment and brought back that as a home, a subject, which is the student does it at home, bring it back to the classroom. And now the homework is not only evaluated by the teacher, that particular student's homework is viewed by all the students across wearing their headset. And then likewise, multiple students can bring that. It becomes extremely interactive way, so these are new teaching and training methods that the teachers need to adapt. Okay, this is one of the ways to do it. And the phygital learning not only remains there, it actually moves from multiple streams of education, right? So one of the biggest challenges today is, if it's an education institution, where do you really start your journey from? Okay, as in terms of advising, do you really, you need to really engage in a complete, cooperative manner, do a complete analysis of what is required in the site, what kind of solution and design can be implemented in the schools and the education institution across. What is the technology integration that can be done in the multiple spaces within the school? Okay, and how do you manage all the suppliers, by bringing in a complete element? And then the key aspect, I totally believe, is the interior design and the integration of workflow, okay, or what I call as a learning flow within an institution. And then the whole deployment in terms of, how do you deploy the digital platform, and what are the hardware and software integration that can be done in a school level, right? In an educational institution level, right? Of course, the space is, the phygital learning space is a mix of everything. As I explained in the previous slide, it's a maker space, it's STEM lab. I really like the double M of the STEM, the morality as well. But now we are also calling it STREAM, right? So it is, science, technology, engineering, robotics, mathematics, and, and morality, so all that can be brought out in a cart. And then you do the whole technology overview. You build immersive studios. We have actually built immersive studios. I'm actually based in Dubai. We have built immersive studios in schools, where a student can walk inside and be a part of a complete experience in the like how you travel through the space, right? And then you integrate that along with the educational platform, which could be your learning management platform, and then you put an implementation strategy around it. So what I'm trying to explain here is, it's like a chain. Everything has to get connected, and that is the only way that you will be able to successfully deploy this technology. Okay. Okay. Well. Okay. Then the whole consulting aspect comes into play. Defining your goal, your expertise on ground, what is the knowledge that you're able to transfer, the strategy and advice, support and success that can be put together. So if you look at it, to understand the goal, really come into that, define the requirement and how you can fulfill that solution. Knowledge transfer is whatever you have gained, how are you going to take that transfer and knowledge and transfer to the teachers? So that is exactly the most important thing, because it is the teachers who needs to get adapted, because the students are already adapted to the new technology and how they are interacting with it, right? And then define the whole implementation strategy of how you will be using this, and what are the most well defined utilizations, and everything that can be put along with it. Your support and service must be of high degree of importance here, because as a support thing, you should be able to consult the school or the education institution in a manner where you can literally handhold them and take it through this. Okay, and once you define the implementation strategy, how you put that together, is all that can be defined. So these are some of the examples of Phygital classroom or Phygital classrooms. These are rendering, but we have real deployments like these. So in this, what you can see is this is a blended learning, what I call as in-room participants could be 5 or 6. Okay, at the same time, you bring all the remote participants that you see here on this. You can bring up to 120 participants that could be spread anywhere across the world. Okay, and one of the greatest thing that I believe has as a benefit to this is the teacher is teaching with the natural style. Okay, what I mean by that is teachers are not really used to sitting behind the computer. And like what I am doing now, this is like a meeting environment, right? I am looking at a camera and a computer. How do I teach mathematics like this? How do I teach physics like this? Or how do I teach, physical education like this? So I don't know if you have noticed a lot of online physical education have started, right? Yoga exercises. So you have a group of people who all connect via Zoom or video, and you do joint exercises like how we are doing meetings. So this particular thing, can a yoga teacher sit behind a computer and say, push your arm like this, pull your arm? You can't. So it's really the phygital presence that comes into play with setup like these, right? So what the benefit here is that today there are technologies that are available that gives you directional audio, right? So for example, if this particular person is speaking and the teacher is standing up here, and she can or he can really hear the audio coming from this direction, right? So if Sri Kumar is placed on the 5th screen, and if he is asking a question, I can say, yes, Sri Kumar. So I can have the eye contact as well as I can have the interaction. This whole, and each of the student is actually coming up on a screen like almost like a life size kind of a thing. It's really not about being a postage stamp on a small screen, right? I'm a parent, I have 2 children. I can see, that they are, very, very, very small screens. What kind of interaction do you have with this? So you bring in the whole new element of a phygital kind of an experience that you bring. And in this particular room, you also have all the elements that are required, okay? Like a whiteboard. For example, if I write on a whiteboard, the cameras can actually face those who see, those who are seated inside the room see exactly the information as the others who are coming from their remote location. All the elements and everything that a teacher can effectively use. So this is what I call as a pure phygital kind of a blended learning. So it's not only remote participants, you can also bring in. The big benefit for a country like India is that imagine you are able to bring in a classroom of 120 students at one go with a small room like this, right? So you multiply this, that means that's many more students you are able to educate and teach. So one of the interviews that I gave out to an American publication is that what are the innovative ways of teaching? So I researched, I found that in the northern part of India, they are actually connecting mobile phones, and these mobile phones are connected to speakers that are hung up on the trees and on the boundaries, and they're lecturing, and the students are sitting and writing their notes, right? So that's the kind of power that you can literally have if you use technology and spread out. I personally feel that this kind of things should be implemented in the education institution to benefit a larger people. Thank you very much.
Yes, it was a very interesting presentation, Girish Narayan. Actually, you have given us more ideas about how to use AR and VR. But the important point that you stressed is that teachers need to adapt to this kind of technology, and there has to be an implementation strategy. So I think we'll quickly go to Kavita C. Das, principal of St. John's High School in Chandigarh, and hear from what are the challenges and concerns school will have when it comes to going in a phygital mode.
Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
So good evening, everyone. My role today seems to be that of devil's advocate. I'm the one who's supposed to say, this is really great, and it is. I mean, you cannot run away from the fact that the world is becoming digital. But at the same time, as a principal of a school dealing with children, I have some questions which I feel need to be looked at very urgently. I know that when you all were presenting, Miss Smitha Matthew asked a very pertinent question on the chat. She said, what kind of cost investments are we looking at? We are in a country where the bulk of our children are not in the cities. They are in the rural sector. Can these schools create those beautiful spaces which Pradeep showed us? Do they have the wherewithal to do it? I'm talking just having the financial strength to produce this. And then the other side of the picture is that we know technology is getting obsolete within days. So what will be, a highly digital, technologically advanced space today is an obsolete space tomorrow. Can schools afford to keep changing? They don't have those kind of, we are talking education for the masses. We are not talking about elite schools here. And education for the masses means that schools such as mine make sure that our fees are not prohibitive. So we are able to reach out to a diverse section of children. But like when we started online classes, thanks to the pandemic, what happened? I have 300 EWS children in my school. I had to struggle to just get them mobile so they could come online. Forget about all the, the fancy stuff. If it wasn't for my wonderful alumni, I wouldn't have been able to get these kids online. So we're talking lakhs of children in the remote areas where there isn't even connectivity. So you can't hang a mobile on a tree. There's no connectivity there for these kids. What's going to happen to them? Are we going to create a greater divide between the haves and the have-nots if we go into phygital spaces? Right? Yes, we need to also remember, you mentioned yourselves that there is a limit to how much time a child can spend in front of a screen. Now, if I bring a child into a school for 6 hours and out of that I use 2 hours to go into all these digital spaces, what am I doing? I am then limiting my kid, because now when he goes home, he's used up the 2 hours that he is actually supposed to spend digitally. He should not be spending more than that if you were to go to the MHRD, to Pragyata, to the studies which are being shown. So the thing is, are we going to put our kids into digital spaces and deprive them of the sensory experiences that they can get within schools? For me, as Mr. Sri Kumar said, for him, his memories and his recollections are not of the classroom. And similarly for me, it was between the classes when I was, charging between desks and meeting my friends and chatting with them and going out and those sort of stuff. It's not what actually happened in the classroom that is my memories of school. All those are going to go missing if I'm only digital, right? And if I'm even within the classroom, if I'm going to have digital, phygital spaces, as we are saying, even there, the connection between children is going to be restricted if you're going to put them in front of screens and put them into virtual spaces. When you're in a school where you can have your children physically together, use that opportunity, right? And let them after that go out and use their digital world. We're turning kids into, they are getting insomniac, they're getting obese, they're having attention deficit issues, they're facing cyberbullying, they're facing inappropriate content. We are not able to monitor these things with our children. Their entire self-image is based on how many likes and dislikes they have, not on whether my friend speaks to me or not. Where is the human connection? Children and people were born to be part of a society. If we lose the human connect, we are turning our children into isolated automatons. Where will they go? Will they have the compassion needed? What about your CWSM kids? Right? They need people to strengthen them. They don't need, digital spaces. They need love. They need affection. They need people around them to include them in their world. Can you do that? What happens to inclusion in our world then? What happens to these special kids? All these sort of things are things we need to look at. We need to remember we're dealing with human beings and we are not all rich. We don't all have the capacity to have these fabulous, I mean, these spaces were amazing, no doubt about it. I was coveting them when I saw them. But I know that not all my kids, when they go home, can keep this quality in at home, right? What happens then? So we need to, I think, be realistic when we're looking at Phygital. We need to understand that we are dealing with children, and children need love, affection, connectivity. If they don't have that, you're not going to get a good society at the end of it. Compassionate, kind, caring people. And that's very strong part of education, isn't it? Look at your SDGs. What are they looking at? A better world. And the better world will come when you have kids with good hearts. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kavita. Actually, you have put Pradeep and also Girish Narayan and all in the defensive. But I am sure they will have something very concrete and very interesting to solutions to the issues that you have raised. You have raised a lot of issues, and I'm sure that Jonah Komba from Germany has also noted something from this, and we'll give an opportunity to her to talk about the what you call use of digital technology and the new and learning environment, the pedagogy part of it. So, but we'll quickly go to Monolita Chatterjee. Actually, she has a very interesting background. She's expert in, I think, urban design, and she's the partner of Design Combine Architects and Designers. She's an award-winning architect, and she has been focused on heritage and urban renewal, and also teaches at KMEA. So she has been part of the leisure, heritage, and urban renewal projects in different parts of the country. So we'll have a quick look at what she feels about the challenges of integrating the digital technology, the new Phygital environment into a very, what do you call, a happy learning experience. As I told in the beginning, school should be a happy, create some kind of happiness. So we need that happiness in the environment. So how best that can be done from an architectural perspective?
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
I'm very glad that Kavita ma'am actually said what she said, because I happen to be the mother of a 7-year-old and a 15-year-old, both having been subjected to online learning over the last 1.5 years now. And I teach at college level. I teach second and third and fourth year and fifth year. And last year as a teacher, and this is us with several digital devices at home. And I know how much we were struggling trying to have 2 offices and 2 children and classes running simultaneously. And I had my students standing at street corners to get internet connectivity, and these are architecture students. These are not students coming from EWS background. And I totally hear you, ma'am, because I also work with government schools on a lot of learning platforms. And as a part of this 1.5-year learning of watching how students were coping with this change, I undertook a design exercise with my second-year students in architecture, and they are actually designing the post-COVID school as a part of their design program. And as a part of that, they undertook a survey of 100 students, 100 teachers, and 100 parents of government schools, of private aided schools, and elite private schools. So they had a whole gamut that they were looking at. And it was very interesting, the learnings that came. I mean, we keep on talking about children hating to go to school, and we keep on talking about children hooked to their devices. But almost 95% of the 100 children that they interviewed want to go back to school. And they want to go back to school. So one of the things I wanted to tell you, Sri Kumar, is that we don't have children over here to talk about their experiences of education, because my children have been very eloquent about their needs from education. And I think we need to hear them to really try to understand the spaces they want and the kind of learning they want. And so the data that came out from this survey was that children want to go back to school. They desperately want to go back to school. Why do they want to go back to school? Because they miss their friends and social activities and sports and games and outdoor playing, which are all completely away from online environments. And they want that interaction that Kavita ma'am was talking about. My 15-year-old keeps on saying that, you know, we can't talk to our friends because on online classroom, the teacher is talking, we have to listen. And we used to be chatting, and this is a teenager this is her main bonding period, you know, this is her social skills developing. We are not talking about social skills. We are not talking about growing children becoming adults tomorrow, and they will live with these visors on their face, and they will not know how to talk to the person next to them. So these are very serious things we need to discuss. And what were the spaces that the children loved to do most of their works? It's outdoors. They loved the stuff that they were doing outdoors, the learnings they were having outdoor. And all of them, their favorite place in school, the park and the playground. All of them, 100% of them. Okay. Parents were finding so difficult to support this digital learning. More than anything else, one of the biggest challenges which we don't understand is that children, they know the digital media way more than us, but they do not know the dangers of the digital media. I also work with children and digital media and safety for them, because I have a whole gender inclusion NGO which I run. And these are conversations which we have, and I was shocked to see the kind of places children go to on the internet, and parents don't have a clue that they're there. And those are dangerous places. From my understanding of the kind of sexual violence and bullying that Kavita ma'am was talking about, it is not just online. It can jump out of the screen and come and hit you. And these are things that we as parents have no clue about, because we have not grown up in that kind of a digital world. These kids are so digitally savvy, way more than us, but they don't realize the real fear, the real dangers which are there out there. And of course, one of the biggest problems everybody had was network availability of smart devices, connectivity. So we can keep on thinking that we can arm our school with the best digital infrastructure, but what happens to the children? They are all over the world in areas where, as Kavita ma'am very rightly put out, I mean, we are in Kerala, which has far greater internet and Wi-Fi connectivity than rest of India. And here, I know the children were really struggling. We talk about attention deficiency. I have taken classes, 6-hour workshops with 14, 15-year-olds, and they have not looked away as a person, you know, upfront. Whereas try taking that 6-hour workshop online. As a teacher, I think every teacher will know it is impossible to do that. So with all of these, when we are reimagining the school, and then the biggest thing that we are not talking about, which the children are talking about, the 15, 18, 20-year-olds are talking about, is the environment crisis that is in front of us, all around us. And we are going to leave these children in those worlds of environment crisis. So with all of this, when we are looking at the school, we really need to be very creative about thinking about what the school should be. And one of the really interesting points that I liked in Pradeep's presentation was where at the end he was talking about how the school can become the center of a community and a neighborhood. And I think therein lies our solution. Our solution lies in reimagining our education system as integrated within our homes, our lives, where children can be, I mean, COVID has talked about these pods that we need to create, where we are secure within a certain pod, but the children can still go to class, be taught by teachers who are trained to teach, not by parents who are not trained to teach. And they can interact with their classmates who are also their friends, and they can learn around and run around and play. We really need to be able to imagine that. Post-COVID has given a huge challenge to traditional architecture. I wouldn't say traditional architecture, I would say architecture over the last 20 odd years, which has moved heavily into air-conditioned and sealed environment. Post-COVID has shown us that that is not a healthy atmosphere, that is not a healthy environment. And we really need to rethink our classrooms, because our children love to read, love to study outdoors. They love the outdoors. How do we integrate? How do we take maths outdoors? Instead of trying to get outdoors inside, how do we take maths outdoors? That is when math starts becoming relevant to them. And we really need to understand this. if we look at community-based schools, we can also understand that there has been massive job losses and all in COVID times. And we can also understand that school is an employer. And if we can actually create the self-sustainable communities which has schools embedded within them, then there are job solutions within that school as an employer. And so one of the things that we have been exploring as a part of our design challenge in college is thinking of a co-living and co-learning experience, because I do not think co-learning is dispensable at all. I think that human interaction, the interaction where you can go and hug your friend, is an extremely important thing for a child. A child needs human contact. So how do we create a safe environment where they can, and one of the things that we were having in the data analysis was that a lot of parents were saying, okay, we are happy about the fact that they are always at home, so we feel that they're safer. But the digital environment, the dangers of the digital environment, the parents weren't even aware of. So that safety and security within a closed environment where we can keep them safe, but we can trust each other and we can allow our children to explore the world. Any educator knows that children learn through experiencing real things, by picking up a leaf and studying its structure, by touching it with his own hands. So we need to be able to restore these memories. These are how we learned, right? So how can we, take these away from our children? So we have to learn to be able to restore these things. And schools definitely need to create infrastructure which emphasizes open air learning, open classrooms, and a healthier environment by integrating nature as a part of your learning. I go back to Tagore's schools in Shantiniketan all the while, where this great genius and one of the most forward-thinking human beings we had in India imagined open air learning 100 years back. And we really need to revisit his ideas about education today, I feel. Thank you.
You raised some very important points, and the most important thing is that children want to return to school. So that's a very positive aspect. But of course, you raised concerns about the kind of environment that we are trying to build through the digital systems and the risk involved in that. So I'll quickly go to Teresa and Syriac. She has done a PG from CEPT Ahmedabad, which is considered to be one of the elite architecture institutions, and she is focused on urban design. So after listening to all this, Teresa, what is your feel? What is your take on, is it so gloomy that the present education system, or can we have a rethink on how best we can bring happiness into our school environments?
Thank you, sir, for inviting me to be here. And I'm actually amongst a lot of experienced people. So I'm not even sure if what I'm going to speak, if it's right or wrong. But I'm so glad that Pradeep sir and Girish sir, you've come up with a lot of new ideas. Yes, in the future, obviously, I think a lot of places are going to be like that. But then I think I agree to what Monolitha ma'am and Kavita ma'am, what they've been talking about. I still believe that, physical spaces are very, very, very important for a child. The touch and feel of any space, the air that you breathe, the natural lighting that you get. I feel all this is very important for a child or any person, not just for a child, for a human being. And to quote an example, I was talking to a friend of mine recently. She has a 3-year-old child. So a lot of us stay in apartments where you don't even have spaces for the child to move around. You are confined in a 4-wall space. But then she thankfully is in her hometown where she has a lot of space for the kids to move around, jump around. But she still was concerned. She was asking me, how is my child going to have a character building? Because the child is not familiar with other children. The child doesn't know how to behave. Though he has a younger sibling, he doesn't know what sharing is, caring is. He doesn't know other children of his age. He's not sure how to talk to them. So I think that's a point that she raised, and I started thinking about it. I was talking to my mom, who's in the educational field. I was talking to her about it, she said, yes, that actually is a problem for children in this generation, or last year and this year, children going to school this year, they'll face these problems. So, and so what I wanted to tell was, schools and educational institutions, any educational institution, the spaces in the environment that you create for them is, I think directly or indirectly, it impacts everyone around them, not just the child, the parents, the teachers, everyone around them. And through virtual learning, experiences can be created, like Grisha mentioned. But then there is always a limitation to what you can experience from that. I feel that experience won't be complete when when you don't have that external factor, when you don't have that physical entity into it. I feel that it's very different. However, you talk about it, you say it's so good. It is not the same. And I think we were so fortunate to have that. And all your these technologies, or whatever, your phygital learning, your schools, everything should have a student-centric approach, or student-centric methodology to what they're doing. And even phygital spaces, I feel it should be activity-oriented spaces. Not just you have a VR, not just focused into that. You should have character building. You should have activities to do something. You should have activities. And so I did my master's in CEPT, and while now when we were talking about it, that's when I remembered we never had most of our classes. We had the books were given to us. The material was given to us. We had to read it, and then we always had a discussion in class, and everyone would write based on what you've understood from the matter. And then later on, you'll have a class where the teacher just tells you what it's actually about. So I think interactive sessions are something which we should actually focus on at this time, rather than having just classrooms where your teacher is there on the blackboard talking to you, telling you what to do and what not to do. And every class that we had, all our exams, all our marks, everything was put up in a dashboard where all of us could just, it was all digital actually. And all our classrooms, actually our college spaces were used only for us to come and work. It was actually the library was used for the books. We used our college and the campus not for studying, but as an interactive space more than, and the studying was done at home. You have material sent to you, you read whenever you're free, when you find time, you jot down notes based on it. But then the space, the college was used for the fun part, the interactive part. And I think, I hope 100 years down the lane, it's still the same. Yeah, I think, you can talk a lot about this, but I think, I should.
Yeah. Thank you, Teresa. Actually, you raised one or two important points. One is that the physical aspect cannot be ignored. We need to focus on the physical aspect and the interactive part of the learning. So that should be enabled in our schools in a much better way. So that's what your key message is to the audience. So what I would like to now stress on is whether, with all these technologies available, all the new pedagogies that we are talking about, the integration of the phygital into our learning system, how best we can actually think of kind of what you call developing a kind of entrepreneurial spirit in the student, using the existing pedagogies, whether that kind of thing is possible. So that actually calls for what you call, not just focusing too much on technology part of it, but how to make children use that technology or apply that technology in such a manner that they come out with something new. The whole experience becomes something which makes them venture fit, or whatever you can call it. So I think that is the big opportunity that digital and all these new architecture models are throwing up. So I think we'll quickly go to Sunila Atle, principal of Amity International School, Ghaziabad, and what she thinks is the from a school perspective, what is the positive aspects that we can talk about. Then we can quickly go to Joanna Kompa of North Germany.
Thank you very much, Shri Kumarji. And I think when you come in the lower end of the panel, you will have to somehow say the same things in different words with a different jargon. But nonetheless, you know, when I heard the word phygital, I was very impressed with this word, you know, because this is what we are going to be, facing when we open up our schools. But then when phygital comes, the physical part came first. That means it is pertinent to note that the physical campuses and the physical building is going to take priority, above the digital space. Kavita ji has spoken so much about, how digital outreach cannot happen in our country. Seeing the diversity, seeing the varied infrastructures that are taking place in all around our country, it's not possible to have digitization of education to reach every child in every nook and cranny of our country. It is just not possible. In spite of all the things that the CBSE and the state both have come up with, there is still a huge group of children who have been left out in this learning process. Now, for too long, our children have been glued to the inanimate screen, be it of the tab or the iPad, isolated in their homes with minimal opportunities for socialization. And this is what Mona Lita ji has so beautifully put across, being a mother and an educator herself. Now, it is obvious then that their emotional quotient and their spiritual quotient have taken a backseat. The media too has not been very kind and accommodating to our children, for being branded as the virus carriers in 2020. And now in 2021, the children are mutely listening to the fact that they might be the victims of the third wave if and when it comes. Have you ever imagined the psychological trauma that the children have gone through? They don't understand the biology. They don't understand the scientific concept behind everything, but they're just listening to these things being blared from the TV day in and day out. 1.5 years, the digital learning is still going on, and it is evident now that the academic and pedagogic transactions can take place in the digital mode, be it in the synchronous or the asynchronous mode. But as school leaders, we believe that children have to come back to our campuses for myriad reasons. Social skills, as put out by both the educators before me, is paramount because children miss having tiffins with their friends. They miss those juvenile pranks. They miss doodling on the blackboard and the back of their notebooks. They miss scratching out on their desk. They miss so many things. They miss their teachers, that appreciative look, that pat on the back. A parent cannot take the role of a teacher. So these little things, these stolen moments of schooling, which, even as we as teachers took for granted for so long, have now become so very important for the mental health and wellness of this millennial generation. Imagine I had class 6 children of my school who wanted to come together for 1 hour on a Sunday just to have their bonvitas together. They said, ma'am, please, we want to come back to school because we like our ma'ams more than our moms. Okay, so now our campuses, have to build that thread of faith and trust with the parents and their families. And this because they're giving us their precious ones after almost 2 years. Now, Indian schools cannot have this concept of social distancing even when we open up. 6 feet ki duri, continuous wearing of masks, this cannot happen. So what we can do is that the other spaces, the happy spaces that Sri Kumarji spoke of, the labs, the play fields, the reading rooms, the corridors, the open air amphitheaters, the workstations, the activity rooms, these spaces will have to be relooked and reimagined, because learning will have to come out from the traditional walls of the classroom. Because in all these rooms, the child would probably go for 1 or 2 periods a week. Now we will have to change the curriculum, the daily schedule in such a way that there'll be more in these spaces, which would be open air spaces, rather than the cooped up classrooms where they would be sitting very close to each other. Now, teaching also will have to be reimagined and relooked to incorporate experiential learning. As Monalita ma'am said, maths has to go outside. That means that experiential learning has to be drummed into our everyday curriculum, into our work plans, into our lesson plans, so that children learn from hands-on outside the classroom. Now, another thing we have to cater to is that every school has a counselor, okay, and we have counseling departments, but the mentoring and counseling department of every school now will have to work overtime. Once the children come back to school, they will have to have a relook at the way they do their counseling sessions with their children, because when we open up the gates for our children, we would have children who would have probably gone through psychological and social trauma of missing a grandparent or a parent. We would be welcoming children who have, have the relocation of space, of places where the father or the parent has lost the job. There have been dwindling financial resources. There might have been separation of parents. So before we embark on the cognitive journey, we will have to take a 360-degree look at the child in as a from all angles, the social, the psychological, the emotional, because there are toddlers who would be coming to school who have never even seen the building. And we would have the senior school children who would have graduated with science without having looked through the microscope or even having handled the vernier caliper. So we are going to be welcoming back children to school they have faced gaps in some, maybe social, maybe cognitive, maybe psychological, maybe emotional, and then also catering to their psychosocial needs that has engulfed them for so many months. Now, when they come back, will they be able to handle aspects like failure, peer pressure, competition, team dynamics, because they all have been working in isolation? Would they be able to work on projects together? If they don't do well in a test, will they be able to handle that kind of setback? How will we cater to their citizenship values? There is so much more that our schools will have to engage in and be interactive and be perceptive to these things that happen when they come back. And as an educator, the day we open our schools, I want my students to come to school without their school bags, without their books, without their pen and pencil. Let them come and run in gay abandon on the play field. Let them bruise their elbows and knees, okay? Let them giggle and shout on the corridor, in the corridors. For too long, we have told them to be quiet, be disciplined, be quiet. Let them be children once again. We have made them such digital natives that they almost are like they're digital adults, because as one of you have said, they are better than us where technology is concerned. So in that aspect, let them get back let them get that childhood back to us. Let them have a spring in their step, a smile on their face, a twinkle in their eyes. This is the only way in which we can make our campuses interactive and engaging, because they desperately want to come. We want to welcome them. And the digital part is going to be a part, because blended learning will be there. But the other aspect also needs to be catered to. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunita. Actually, many children, if they listen to you, they would want you to be the principal of the school. I'm sure about it. So we'll quickly go to Jonna Kompa from North Germany, because we need to find out. Now, there are so many issues here, because we also talk about the changes needed in pedagogy. Now we have the new education policy in India. Likewise, all across the world, I am told that there is a talk about changing the existing pedagogy. And now we have these additional issues of integrating technology, all these Phygital things. And more importantly, when children get back to school, as Sunila has already pointed out, so many emotional and social issues they are going to face. So how best can we think of, maybe this is the right time to think of the kind of changes that we are talking about. So over to have a small view from Joanna Compa, and before we go to the industry view again.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you. Firstly, thanks to Professor Varghese Pandalukaran for inviting me, and thank you for having me here. I like to pick up where all my speakers left before. I was recently talking to my father, and he said on the theme, and he said something which I really liked. He said, "Look, Joanna, look at our bodies. They're analog. Nature is analog." And when we talk about digital space, it's our technological space, which is like, in the best case, if nothing bad happens, like an extension of our mind, like driving a car, and now I can be anywhere. But we have to be aware it's two worlds that we try to match. And I think the first thing that came to my mind is that we should avoid a misunderstanding. I think when it comes to children, everybody agrees, and also people like me who are really in favor of digital technology, we all agree that there is no substitute for face-to-face interaction and for social interaction. So this is what children, by all means, what they really need, and we do not want them to be stuck now onto VR goggles into like a dark room for the rest of the day. Absolutely not. So I totally agree what has been said. But I may like to share maybe some ideas where digital technology could be really beneficial for schools. And it has to do with the changing role of maybe a different type of pedagogical model. In Germany, most schools are not maybe as progressive and as modern as you may think. Many of them are still very traditional. You know, you have the teacher telling the students what they should learn, then they have a test. So a lot of things are very, very traditional. And I think during the COVID crisis, what happened was that a lot of schools said, look, this doesn't work for us anymore, and we more have to be like a facilitator of learning, or rather than a dispenser of knowledge. And when, for example, primary school embraced technology, it was not really to replace face-to-face contacts, but maybe doing other things. For example, that some schools have some sort of learning management system where the children can decide for themselves which tasks they would like to work on. So it's a bit like the Montessori pedagogy, you know, you give autonomy to the children or to young learners to say, like, look, which tasks would you like to work on now, for example, and to and at the same time to not only, because we're talking about students all the time, but to bring teachers together digitally. So what my job is, for example, to plan curricula together. In the old days, I don't know how it is in your culture, but in our culture, it's not as advanced as you might think. So a lot of teachers, always like to do their own thing. They say, okay, I teach math or I teach languages, and okay, I do my curriculum and what I'm doing with the students. And I think the new way of doing things is that we say, look, we have like a collaborative platform where a couple of teachers collaboratively work together, put together their most interesting ideas for like a creative learning activities. Maybe what just got mentioned, maybe you go outside, you say, okay, let's visit a farm who does maybe biological farming, or let's go to, we can lot of places outside the school where we can learn. But I think the interesting part is that this is all collaborated on a digital platform where everybody can, which is transparent, for example, and where then teachers can put together their best practice. They can discuss, how should it be assessed? What is fair? Does anybody have some more creative, really great ideas for stimulating learning activities? And this can also be done digitally. So I'm thinking of digital not only about, okay, what for children now. I'm thinking more of like empowerment. And I think the pedagogical, to go back to the initial question, was the pedagogical move is from a standardized school tests to like a competency-based assessment. And competency-based means two things. It means that we put emphasis on one side on collaborative learning, and on the other hand on personalized learning, which means that the idea is that nobody gets left behind. The idea is that in a standardized learning, there is a nice expression, teaching to the middle. So if you have the Gaussian distribution and the teacher stands in front of the classroom, and maybe for the middle, it's okay, the type of delivery, even if it's a very good teacher. Some students may, they don't really get it, and they get lost and more as they progress in the curriculum. And the ones who are really good, they get politely bored, but they will try not to show it to the teacher. So the whole idea is that in the competence-based learning, which we can then support with digital media or learning management systems, that we take them along, that we say, okay, who needs more support? So if there is a weak learner or children with some difficulties, that we say, okay, how can we, that I immediately see it on my board, I see how they're progressing, and I can go personally to the students and say, hey, can I help you? Or they can come to me, which means, and those who are really good, they also don't get bored. I can say, okay, if you're finished with it, here's an extra challenge for you. So the whole idea is more like of a humanistic approach, to say like all students, it's a student-centered approach. Everybody should develop their full potential, and everybody should get the maximum support. The weak students should get maximum support, and the really good students should get maximum support. And we can do that by this type of scaffolding digital systems. And it does not mean that we now only communicate digitally, because in the classroom, we all can be analog. The only idea is that we know, okay, how we're progressing, what is your, and it fits nicely together to do the link. Mr. Pradeep did this, we had this really beautiful presentation, which I thought was a great architecture. And then to see how this architecture fits actually into this new type of learning mode, that we say, okay, maybe there are spaces where students can work for themselves, they have their own desks, or maybe there are spaces where they can really meet nicely together, they can chat with their friends. And this is very pro-social, and it's better than the teacher telling them what to do. So it's like the whole idea, I think the key word is empowerment, how to empower learners. And I totally with you that it's all about the social skills, and the social skills and the teamwork become more important than ever, which means it's the teacher as a facilitator of learning, and as well as the students collaborating together. And maybe also what I think is nice, if the strong students can also help the ones who get left behind. That is also pro-social behavior. But if I have it in a transparent digital system, I really know who is going ahead. And what I'm doing in my classes is I'm asking the strong students, can you be a scout? Either a digital scout or an academic scout, which means, can you help those who struggle, who have problems, maybe logging into the software or the computer hangs, and can you help them? So it's not only the teachers, but we have then students helping students, or what we call peer instruction and peer learning, because they like much more advice from somebody their own age than from me. Although I'm very, very empathetic, and at the same time, academic scouts, if they are a couple of grades older, or at university they're already at a higher level, and they're just the ones who the freshies who just come in, we say, hey, if they have a problem in academic problems, I don't have the time to be. And if I have now a digital system where I know roughly how they're embarking on their learning voyage, then I can also facilitate the social exchange. So this would be my idea, maybe a different perspective, that we do not use digital technology to replace the analog, but to support it and to support and empower learners. And this would be maybe an idea that could be discussed further. And this would also fit into the really nice architecture that we saw in there. And also what got done before, who is paying for all that? We have the same problem. Now we say, oh, you're one of the richest countries in the world, and we have a problem getting the money together for schools, and people and parents and everybody asking themselves exactly the same questions, you know, and it's the same frustrations. It's not different. We are frustrated about politicians, about not having access to wireless or glass fiber cable, to having really old systems. And I think it's to say, like, look, there's not a master plan. We all have to see what is within our means, what we can do, and what is the way I see it, what is a social progress. So what is the social impact of the technology that we're implementing? And that would be my contribution. Thank you.
Yes. So Joanna, you raised some very important point. One is the integration of the analog with the digital, and actually getting the best out of the digital in such a way that the socio-emotional part is also handled. I think there we need to have a good look at the pedagogy, existing pedagogy, and come out with some innovation in that regard. So we'll quickly go to the industry view. We have Mr. Shaishav Kayasta, GM of Extra Marks Learning. So I would like to ask him basically, has the industry understood this very complex requirement of the schools, the concerns of the schools, and also the need to integrate with the pedagogy of the changing educational landscape? So how do you view this, and what are the concerns that you are trying to address?
Thank you so much, Mr. Shri Kumar. Greetings to everyone present here. Yes, this has always been a question whenever it is, though we are meeting through a digital online media, but with the help of technology. I would put more emphasis on the word technology because I come from the same background. But there has always been a good fight, or I won't say fight, but a good debate between the educators and the technology providers. Both think on a very different platform, and wherein the blending is the problem. So before I start my talk, I would like to just share a small presentation before all of you, which the topic says is industry readiness to cater the diverse digital requirement in education. Now, before I put forward, let us all understand, is technology new to the world? Is how it is being adapted by the schools, or how is it being taken by the schools and educators? This is the first and basic question. Or is it like I really do not know how to manage the technology along with my life? That's at times a big question again. When I go in the past, like thousands of years ago, I see a Pushpak Viman and I see Sanjay briefing the entire Mahabharat. But I still believe technology is very new to this country. What happened to us is, before 1947, when the British Raj started in the country, they brought a thought process to us. They brought a thought process which made us think and realize and block our thought process that teaching, or accountants or doctors or mechanical engineers, these are certain professions which earn good money. And this is how it should go ahead. And that's the reason we gave up our all thoughts of how advanced we were and how better we were in terms of educating the world. And we went to these clerical jobs, or we thought that this is the whole process, how life is better. In the year 2020 onwards, what happened to our life is, these things entered to our life. Be it WebEx, be it Microsoft, be it Zoom, be it Google Meet. And we did not change, or did we? That's a big question again, because the nature changes every time. And as someone said, I don't recall the name, if you change, things are much more easier to adapt and grow in life. But did we change after 2020? Our classes are still dry and boring. It was awesome. It was great for a kid to sit in the class, in the initial 2 months, taking it as a new thing, something new that has come to my life. But when things started moving ahead, when there was a lot of stress, a lot of frustration, because even Harvard study proves that in the world, the maximum death happens just because of stress. Are we able to build on that stress? Is the technology working on this? The word education comes from the Latin word educe, meaning to bring out. What did we bring out in last 1.5 years from these kids? A big question for all of us. It's not about what did technology bring to my class. It's all about the fight between digital natives and digital immigrants. We studied through a chalk and talk method. We studied through a method which was a physical appearance, but we never took it like, this could be blended in a good manner and could be presented to the whole class. And we can do more of physical activity by connecting them on a digital platform. They understand, they are parallel thinkers, they are multitaskers, they are into multimedia and multi-resources. But because we are a sequential thinker, we do single task at a time, we have limited resource, and we are text-based. So we don't want to move ahead. That's the difference that's the difference why the entire debate takes place when technology enters education. And I guess, see, it's just not about schooling. It's just not, I don't say I am a big supporter of getting educated, but somewhere I believe that agreed to the thought process that we all use either Apple or Facebook or YouTube or Snapchat or WhatsApp. All of us have accounts on these platforms. They were being created by the dropouts. Number one. Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Thomas Edison. They never went to the school, the formal education. Still, we give their name as an example. So what do I want to communicate with this is, if we take technology as a competition, is the industry ready to face? My first question is, I as a supplier, I am ready to give, but you as a buyer, are you ready to take? Is there a demand? There is a demand, but am I understanding it how to use? I have purchased the costliest car in the world. I don't know how to drive it. It's useless for me, and I'll find faults with it, that it is not getting started, there's no gear, there's a problem, and so on and so forth. The problem is we have got habitual towards blaming. When we fail, we blame. The biggest problem of the teacher, because I've been a teacher's trainer for a very long time, what I face is the child knows technology far better than what the teacher understands. And then the insecurity or a feeling of I don't know that arises in a teacher, and the teacher comes to a class and feels, no, technology is not the good way to approach. Let's go in the most physical manner. But tell me, since last 1.5 years, we have upgraded ourselves towards the technology. We all say like, physically meeting and teaching is really a good thing. I agree to it. I have been a big supporter of this, and being sports in life and all those things have been really the first priority for me. But again, I need to put a question amongst all of us. How many of us really taught typing to the kids? Because the schools these days, or the schools till my time or till our time, never taught typing, banking, buying and selling, soft skills, and being independent, that is Atmanirbhar. No, and these are the things that is required in the human being for the lifetime. What we teach how did Hitler die? Where did we use this data last in the life? I don't recall. So there are certain things which we need to change. The reason I'm quoting these examples is there are changes required to adapt these technology. There is enough of human technology, human intervention required to use this. See, people say like, computers were brought to the world and they can do the work of 100 human beings together. But that again, that computer was created by a human being. We need to understand that human mind is far better. The only thing is we are not churning it as per the requirement. We are not taking it as per the as per the change in the years and change in the entire decade, we're just using those old process and we want to blend those old process with the technology. How about me doing a class, a hybrid class, where a child is being taught important points? He's made to learn and understand certain amount on his own, or certain amount of certain chapters by his own. This inculcates a lot of independent learning, because you need to make him independent learner. That's the only way out. Unless and until we make them, we can't expect out of them a good career. Secondly, our goal of of teaching the kids, or our goal for schooling, is it just education? It is more of engagement. So engagement, these kids understand the language through technology far better. They are not so much interested in Hindi, English, Sanskrit, social studies, and all these subjects. They are interested in technology. So the language which I understand, how about you teaching me from the same language? That's the need of this child. And we want to boost our thought process. We want to boost our thought process into them. This is what I know. So you have to understand only this through my way. I am not talking about some schools. Some schools are doing real good jobs. They have really good teachers worth treasuring them. But I'm talking about the whole atmosphere across the country, which majority of the schools are doing it. So this is how I wanted to put my thoughts across. And yes, we can have a lot of discussions on the same. But yes, adapting a technology is more important rather than what do we as an industry, or we as the offerings have for the school. Thank you so much, Mr. Srikumar.
Yes. Thank you, Shaishav. Actually, you raised one or two important points. Actually, we are coming to that only, but how to make children independent learners. And there, the challenge now is that teachers are digital immigrants and the children are digital natives. So that huge gap is there. How to blend the two differing capabilities. That's, I think, it's a big issue. So we'll quickly go to Joseph Tribal. He's actually into providing cost-effective solutions in the digital space. He's the director of EduFrames and also a company called eMotion. He was earlier with leading companies like Pearson. So we'll have a quick look from him, and before we try to come to terms with all the issues that were talked about from the panelists.
Yeah, thank you, Sri Kumar. It's a great pleasure to be here with such august panel of educators and industry leaders. Thank you. So I'll quickly go through a presentation which I have, and I'll be speaking about the cost-effective ways of integrating technology into education. Let me try to share the screen.
Yes, you can start.
Okay, you can see that. Huh?
Yes.
Let me share that again. Yeah, so actually, I'll be speaking about how cost-effective solutions can benefit education. Last week, this Educause Horizon report was released. This is one of the most anticipated report every year, which educators and edtech industry look forward to know the future trends. And they do a large survey on how the future course of education technology and trends that would come out in the current year. So this is what they have identified. The top like 6-7 important technology that will impact education worldwide would be the number one: artificial intelligence, blended and hybrid course models, learning analytics, micro credentialing, open education resources, and quality online learning. So whether we like it or not, digital technologies are going to be here to dominate our education. Because if you look at India, over the past 4-5 years, you have seen a huge growth of edtech companies in the country. We have one of the world's largest edtech company based out of Bangalore, and scores of them are coming up in Bangalore, which are impacting education worldwide. And there have been a lot of adoption from India as well. Definitely, digital education is here to stay. So before that, I want to give a big thank you for the teachers out here who have been through a great year of real challenge, because they have shifted to online learning, and the pandemic has really given a huge stress for the kids as well as the teachers. And I really appreciate their efforts, because many of the teachers I personally know have shifted to online for the first time, have taught in this online space, and it is absolutely really tough. It's not like easy for a teacher to create slides for the presentation, and absolutely it's challenging. And we really appreciate the teachers who are here for being with the kids, and you have supported the kids in this time of crisis, and that is really to be appreciated. And thank you for being and taking care of the kids, your kids and kids worldwide. So as many of the panelists said, digital divide is a reality in anywhere. This is one of the cartoons that came up from in a Sri Lankan newspaper, and there is a huge protest in Sri Lanka happening because of the digital divide. We are seeing it in even in Kerala, where we boast about the large educational facilities. 40,000 students doesn't have devices to learn. They need to be supported with devices. Many of them doesn't have access to internet. They are being left without education, or they are not able to attend the classes. So these are the reality we are living through. And Sir Ken Robinson used to be one of the most influencing person in education, and he always advocated to have that creativity back in school. The schools need to be the place where a lot of creativity happens, and he wanted schools which are quite different, as Manolita said, like as Shantiniketan model of school need to come back. But the reality is that our kids are living in two worlds. We have schools with the best facility, and we have schools which doesn't have much facilities at all. While we are at Pearson, we supported the project called Support Our School with a library, and we provided libraries to around 1,000 schools across the country, teaming up with Coca-Cola and NDTV. And I was personally interested with going to the schools across North India, particularly states like Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, where we were supporting a single room school, where they were teaching kids, all sections students were there together. They do not have toilets, they're just one building, and we had to set up library inside it. That is the disconnect the industry have for the education system in the country. We need absolute disruptive thinking on how to reimagine the learning spaces, because of course, I am working currently in the virtual reality space for medical education, but school education, taking it to such sophisticated in a country like ours, is going to be a challenge for a large mass of students. Of course, that digital divide would always be here, and we need policymakers to really focus on bridging that divide with the new education policy, with large funding that need to come up to really make schools build the infrastructure. Otherwise, a large chunk of our population is going to miss out the benefits of digital education. And I have founded this company with a team of experts, the EduFrames, to support cost-effective ways for educational institutions to adopt learning solutions. Even if it is a WhatsApp way of teaching, we are ready to support it. This is an initiative we have based in Cochin, And we have started helping educational institutions to set up studios. We are helping institutions to launch online programs. We are helping institutions to develop video classes, also post-production support, any level of end-to-end support. We have already done MOOC courses for Mahatma Gandhi University, launching a full-scale online course. We have developed courses for Sri Shankara University to launch their online program. And also we are setting up even micro level learning interventions. So we, as EduFrames, we envision to support educators in this, particularly in Kerala and Tamil Nadu for first, to help them support in the adoption of digital technologies, because this pandemic is still not over. We are living in a situation where 40 lakhs people have lost their lives, and schools may not open immediately until the vaccination has not been completed. We only have 3.5% population vaccinated. So this is the reality we are living in, and we need all those things to be really speeded up to get our kids back to school. And that is the only way we can make the education serve its purpose that is envisioned by all the panelists here.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you, Joseph Tribble. Actually, you are doing a great job bringing cost-effective solutions. I think that is the way to go forward. So we'll quickly come to the major issues that were raised. One is the technology side, the cost of access to this kind of new technologies, and the social and emotional disconnect that is going to happen if we are fully into this model. Then, of course, the architectural part, again, which many people raise concerns. So I think we'll quickly go to Pradeep first to talk about the architectural issues that were raised, I mean, from the cost perspective, and whether there are very simple solutions that you can offer to which will be acceptable across the world.
Thank you, Sri Kumar. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to explain the side of the architectural and the building fraternity in solving this issue. If you see India as a whole, and for Joanna's information, we have more than 1.5 million schools across India. That is huge and magnanimous, and required more. Every neighborhood, every community is growing. We have a very, very robust population, and in another 10 years, majority will be in this K-12 region, still growing. So how do we tackle this growing phenomenon? We also had fantastic critique from Kavita, where she had specifically identified the impact of cost vis-a-vis the scale of education that we need to impart. In last 2 decades, I was fortunate to work with multiple leading education providers across the world. And I have been traveling from Kanyakumari to Srinagar, from Calcutta to Ahmedabad. You won't believe, in bullock carts and buses, trains and aeroplanes. I have seen and felt the need of cost effectiveness, which Joseph has really, trying to create a template and model. And I also appreciate Monolitha's insight into passive architecture. So what we need to evolve together jointly as a team is to come up with a strategy to feed in the new software of education and curriculum in the existing hardware. When I say existing hardware, it's the existing 1.5 million schools and also the future 1 million schools that we will be building. So are we going to build the same hardware to take in the new software of new methodology and digital and passive architecture methods? I don't think so. We have to come up with a strategy jointly to create a robust, passive regional architecture to resolve all the pedagogy and also the various elements that our educators have put forth. I was really impressed with Sunila's approach to architecture to give education a different angle. And as Monolitha mentioned, she had two children. I also have two children. My daughter goes to college and my son goes to grade 5. So I play soccer with my son and discuss philosophy and finance with my daughter at two range of activities. So what we have to do is to come up with forms and design strategies which could be built in multiple scenarios. I'll give you an example of fabric and garment design. Let's say we are designing a nice Indian ethnic wear. This design framework can be the concept, but we can build it with silk, we can build it with khadi, we can build it with cotton, we can build it with polyester. So a design structure can be built with multiple cost input, which may not impact the concerned educational institution or the organization. So an architecture and design, and I strongly feel Monolitha and also our we had Teresa explaining about the concept of urban design and how the schools can be integrated with collaborative learning. We can jointly come up with a design structure which could be built by the students themselves as a project. For example, the Buckminster Fuller dome that I showed can be built with cost-effective bamboo, can also be built with high-end steel or carbon frame or fibers, depending on where we want to build. That is one aspect. Second aspect of technology is we should definitely involve GIS, geographical information systems, to identify the reach and extent of the existing schools to cater to the demographic regions, and also to identify the correct curriculum, correct space plan, what is the actual built-up area required. Instead of creating an array of classrooms and large schools, we can combine these classrooms and come up with a very efficient building design, which can be cost effective. So there are multiple methods by which we can come up with very cost effective solutions to cater to the digital world and also to the phygital world without having much impact on the overall capex, the capital expenditure, and the opex, because cost of school running also depends on the operation costs. So the design should have an inbuilt mechanism to reduce, let's say, the air conditioning system. If we have the passiveness and the air circulation, the orientation, less of heat, more of natural light, these are the techniques. And then I think we could take the discussions offline to really understand school specific or region specific architectural requirements to come up with cost effective solutions. And it is being practiced. I know architectural firms doing very cost effective schools across the world, which we can discuss with individual providers. I think this is my first reply. Yeah.
Okay, great, Pradeep. Actually, you have given us hope that the architecture can be suited for the requirements of the schools and their budget. So we'll quickly go to Dr. Joseph Sebastian, who is the director of Faisal Shabana Foundation. And they have done some very innovative projects with government schools, modernizing. So we'll have a quick view from him before we come to the final.
Thank you, because we have a physical and a digital world with realities which are changing quite very fast, and the bottom line is what we now know is that no one is safe until everyone is safe, is what we have reality that we have all come across, and something that we have to accept. I mean, whether COVID moves on, something else comes in, I think this is a reality which probably, unless maybe, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years down just like Spanish flu happened, I'm sure at that point of time people have spoken like this, and later people moved on, so things change, that's for sure. But at least in the near future, I think this aspect would be very much in our minds. Second thing is that networks, yes, this is another reality that we are in. I think, whether we like it or not, this is here to stay. we are going to have 5Gs and 6Gs and 7Gs coming forward, and technologies which would probably become redundant within days, if not years. I mean, we don't need so much of time. What do we have? Actually, see, we had a time when we had letter writing, and we all loved letter writing. We had, I'm sure quite a lot of people remember these phones, the dialing phones and the STD codes, and you had to remember so many of them. And then of course the Nokia phones that came, and that was wow, that point of time. And then you came up with the smartphones. This is how things are moving, and I think this is a reality. But we also have schools. I mean, yes, they are empty at this point of time, but there are schools. That's also a reality which we have to have, and we should acknowledge what all the educators in this forum are talking about. However, I think to the educators and to all of us, I think not very long ago, we had this notice.
Joseph, are you sharing the screen? It's not coming.
Was it?
It's still showing.
Okay, I thought you were saying this. Okay, let me not go with the. Okay, so I'll just go this way. Right. So we had all of this, and then we had these notices which we had, which went around. But then now I think, as Kavita mentioned, we had actually got out, including myself, trying to find these gadgets for the kids so that ultimately they could actually have something going forward. So I think blended learning is a reality which we are in now, and probably something that is going to happen in the near future. I think with markets pushing for how things are, and unfortunately markets drive a lot of things in this world, this is always going to be a case. And I think we saw some of the speakers from the corporate talking about it. But then the other reality that we're talking about is the social stratification. Now on the left side that you see is the, in Faro's time, how it was. And the same now. I mean, you would have different, what you call stratification variables, but the stratification is always going to be the case. Now, in all of this scenario, how do we kind of look at things? The image on the left is, learning under a tree. On the right is homeschooling, basically. So these are also realities that we have. In this scenario, what clicks? I think first and foremost thing is that classrooms have to change to include both personal contact and spaces for technology. So maybe the structure has to change in the way the number of children in the group has to see. Small group learning is something that we have, we have to look at. We've done all of this in the schools that we are associated with. Learning based on aptitude, project and outcome linked ones. We would require technology, of course. But then we have also found out camps and workshops really help a lot. See, for example, we have had 14 rounds of workshops on coding itself for our children who come from government schools. And people from Kerala would have heard about the Nadakav school model. And in that model is what I'm talking about, where we have done these workshops. I think we really have to look at what all is needed. See, I think one of the speakers did mention that we have set our minds on saying that, okay, fine, these are the things that we require, and probably we are trying to go and achieve that. Now the point is, do we need all of that? What is needed at a primary level? What is needed at a secondary level? The pedagogy of it, the content of it, everything. Do we need kids to learn all they presently do? That's something that we have to look at. And also the aspect of inclusive education. I think inclusive education is a great concept. But then the aspect is that, are we really inclusive enough? And the aspect is that inclusion should be at all levels, whether it is from remembering to create. So when we are looking at probably a child coming from, we are talking about children coming from very rural environments where technology and let's say your 5Gs and all, they may not reach. But can we also help them to create? Not just look at, remember and understand only. So the point is inclusion at all levels, on all these 6 levels of learning that we normally, as educators, we all know about. And I think, I feel that this is an opportunity. It's a great opportunity to relook at what we are doing and how we are doing it. I think we are all worried. Even in the earlier times, like, when I say earlier times, the normal employability that, look at Kerala, for example, the employability is at risk actually. Higher education, yes, we are looking at blended learning, and we're looking at anything that is online. I was talking to one of the trainers, and we were discussing in terms of mentoring requirements, and we were saying that as professors, maybe at 50s and late 40s or whatever, can we now really talk to our students in the language and the levels that they look at? Maybe, you know, a physics teacher, for example, a physics professor, I'm talking just on higher education here, physics professor may be able to give the best in the country, but for the student at the BSc physics classroom, he or she has got access to, you know, courses in Harvard and Stanford and Oxford. So that's the level of difference that we are having. So we need to kind of, you know, bridge this level of differences and gaps so that the children don't get missed out. Or what is going to happen is that we already have a lot of indifferences, and I totally understand that, because I come from a philanthropy and initiative. I've done so, you know, I've been working in this world. I mean, in this sector for last 3 decades, and I primarily work with government schools. So I know a lot of divide that we have. So if we don't bridge it up, I think the divide is only going to go up. So I think the bottom line is no one is left behind, of course, but at the same time seeing that we are taking them all forward. So it's a matter of, you know, which level you're talking. See, there's two ways of doing inclusion, and, you know, two levels of not leaving everybody behind. The point is, you can make the minimum level lower or you can make the minimum level higher. So which level are we talking about is the important, and we need to look at it all from the children's perspective. I think Mona Lisa, one of the speakers earlier mentioned, we don't have any children in this group. We should have had some students, and we should have listened to their perspectives. We should listen to them as to what they want their lives to be, and then probably take it from there. Thank you very much.
Okay, great, Joseph, Sebastian. So we'll quickly go to Girish and just find out whether the industry has any perspective about making this cost effective, like new models, whether we can have a kind of SaaS platform or a PaaS platform as a solution. Do you have any such ideas?
Yeah, thank you very much, Srikumar. So I do not know much about what is happening in India, but if you look at the US, there is Internet 2, which is exclusively an internet band, which is built for the education. And what it does is it actually provides the education institution at almost no cost, high bandwidth and gigabits of connectivity, right? And like in Europe, if you look at it, it's a giant network, I think, if I recollect it correct. They also provide the kind of network that is required for the education. And right here in the UAE, we call it as the Ankabut network. Ankabut network is the equivalent of Internet 2 that is provided to the educational institutions. Ankabut in Arabic means spider. So, you know, I believe the government in India should actually work on something like this. And this is the only way that the equal opportunities can be provided within the government and the private education in terms of connectivity. So the industry does have something like that. Now, how we implement this is something that really needs, if I may stick my neck out, is like some kind of a PPP model, which is like that will sort of enable less and less use of hardware. I think Pradeep picked up that particular subject, saying how do we deploy the new software on a hardware, right? So that's why it's very important to have this kind of models that are deployable within the PaaS model or the SaaS model. See, today in the corporate world, it exists, right? It's not a difficult aspect to deploy it in the education, but it really needs a lot of handholding and thinking within the industry as well as the government to work together to make this happen. So some of the examples that in the corporate world it exists is, I know certain airports in Europe that are completely on a model of you know, a kind of a service model. So everything that is there in the airport in terms of digital signage, hardware and software is all on a profit sharing mode. So there are digital signages that are used. So, you know, corporates pay for those. The airport invests nothing there. They provide the real estate and the connectivity, and whatever the profits are generated is actually a percentage of that goes back into the airports. And so that a model actually exists within the corporate network. Now, how do you take that experience and put that back into the education and do a kind of a model that actually subsidizes massively for the education? This is the only way which I personally believe can actually expand the whole network. I hope that gives you some sort of a
Yes.
throw some light. Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Girish. Actually, you have given some idea regarding this PPP model, and we need to explore various options, because we can always blame the high cost and the inaccessibility of technology, but we can always find creative solutions. So we are coming to the close of this 2-hour session, and actually it threw up so many very interesting issues and concerns from the architect side and also the school side. So we'll just wait for some more reaction, some more responses before. Any quick response on this? Any points to be added? Anyone? Joanna, would you like to? Or Santosh, would you like to?
Yeah. I had just one point. I just put it in the chat box. Basically, we have a network called the National Knowledge Network in India, which it was started 10 years before, basically connecting all the premier institutions, and Cochin University was part of that. And we were enjoying the high bandwidth network internet connectivity through this National Knowledge Network. Now it is understood that MHRD is going to redesign it as a Digital India Initiative project, and to be rolled out early 2022 to connect all the educational institutions in the country with optic fiber connectivity with lower cost or maybe no cost. So maybe the connectivity part will be taken care by the government as we understood.
That's great information, sir. That's wonderful.
So we'll quickly go to Sunila Atle and also Kavita. What is their take now after hearing all? There are possibilities of solution emerging.
The situation emerging is that I don't think schools will reopen for the next 6 months or so, because even the national board is coming up with various alternative methods, because assessment is the biggest issue. Even if teaching learning takes place, assessment has still not, we have not been able to conquer that, that hurdle of how to assess the children from various angles through the digital mode. The MCQ and the objective type of questions are there, but there are other methods of assessment which are still, we are not being able to cater to that. And also for the children with special needs, because this is a very large group of children where we are not able to effectively reach out to their individual needs as we would like to. And the third thing is the lab work, the laboratory work. This is another thing that digitization has to cater into, although we have O-labs and simulations, but the practical aspect, which actually tests the dexterity of the children and gives them a hands-on and experiential learning, this is something which, this is a hurdle which we still need to cross. So I think in the next 1 year or so, we will come up, the speakers, the panelists before me have given us such a beautiful platform. But I just hope that each and every school is able to incorporate them, and it just not, it becomes a prerogative of the few elite schools. That should not happen, because then the very motive of our education policy, that is universalization, will not will stand defeated, because we are a country which still believes in universalization of education first, and then excellence or specialization of education. So to reach every child, I think in whichever format of digital learning it is, I think that should be our first prerogative. And also teacher training. That is, we still should not have teachers, teaching with the loudspeaker in the village, Choraha. That is not a happy space to be in. So teacher training, network connectivity, providing hardwares to the children. There is a family which has 2 children. We cannot have 4 gadgets in the home. It's just not feasible. So whatever things that come up. I could see in the chat box, they're talking about, I believe the ministry is talking about something where it would reach every school. They're thinking of a connectivity, a special kind of connectivity. We are looking forward to that, because it should not be that schools, the vernacular schools, are left out, because most of the transactions, the assessments take place in English, and our softwares have to be, the NEP says that we have to have vernacular medium till class 10th. So if that is going to be so, then our softwares adapted for all the languages that is under the Constitution of India. So taking everything into account, I think we will be able to, when we have the experts from the technology and the educators together, I think we can overcome this. If the advanced countries like Germany also are facing hurdles, then we are a country which has the best IT brains. We will definitely be able to overcome this.
Okay, thank you, Sunila. We'll quickly go to Kavita, and then Joanna is also waiting, and Teresa is also waiting. So I'm giving the opportunity for all. So we'll quickly go to all the.
I'll keep it brief. Thank you, Sunila ma'am. You covered a lot of very, very pertinent points, which need to be taken care of, especially keeping the NEP and the future of education as envisioned by our government and our people in our country. And it's a unique space which needs to be catered to. I was very happy to hear from our IT experts, Mr. Narayanan, etc., as to how we can adapt. And it was great, the idea that hardware doesn't need to change because that's the major expense. My appeal to technology is, don't take away the childhood of our children. Don't put them into purely virtual spaces where they forget what reality is about, where they forget to connect to people. Bring it alongside, but only make it a tool to be used in education. It cannot replace education. Remember this. And this commercialization of education, which is going on, which is selling education as something that can replace the school and the educational spaces of today and yesterday, are not something I can agree with. Because you will take away the childhood of our children. You will take away the humanity of our children. You will take away their ability to reach out and engage with people. And if you take away that, your society is heading towards disaster. They will not be able to differentiate between reality and virtuality. Help them to identify this. Help them to see the real world against the virtual world, and to understand. And children especially, they need sensory teaching. And while the digital world can give them, at present, can give them a visual largely, what about the other senses? Those are only going to come if children are interacting. So come alongside us. Don't try to replace us, please. That's my appeal to the technologists of today.
Yes.
We'll quickly go to Joanna. Yes.
Yeah, I try to make it quick. I think the whole purpose should be that digital technologies makes schools more human, that they give empowerment. And there in Germany, we're in the beginning of the COVID crisis, this discussion a lot, is it digital versus analog? And it's not this, it's illusionary question. It's not, it's really, you cannot play out one against the other. You lose both ways. And I think it's like, how do you combine them so you can empower learners? I think what is really important, and what I just heard was that children have a safe space. I think one of the big concerns is like cyberbullying, is inappropriate content. It thinks, do we have a safe space? Like our own, for example, for my students, we have something like WhatsApp, but it's not WhatsApp. It's like entirely enclosed only for our group, and they love it. They can have their emojis, they can have their things, but it's only for our group. Outsiders cannot come in, and it's a safe space. And I think these are the challenges for schools. So how do we set up the digital space? And on the assessment, of course, there are new formats. We never had e-portfolios before. The whole question about competency-based assessment. Before it was just grades. And it requires a lot of reskilling of the teachers. And I think I'm afraid that if we are too we have to do it together with the students as well. Because otherwise what happens, some teachers, they came to me and they said, Joanna, we don't know what to do, because we're talking about different cultures, you know, the young people, they are on their mobile phones all the time. They're already in their chat rooms, they're already there. And then they come to school and it's like books and old school works, no feedback. There is not a feedback culture. And so we feel that the youth culture and the school culture is drifting apart. And I think culturally, it's like, where can we get them on board, or where can we get the young people on board, provide like a productive feedback culture, and not only a grade at the end of the school year, but to say continuous feedback, so you can get better, so you enjoy getting better. And I think this is where we can put in digital tools to really good use. And so I think for me, the question would be, so how can we put digital technology not to replace, of course, the social no, I think that should never be the case, but how can we enhance and how can we empower learners with digital tools? Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a few points that I missed. So Pradeep sir was talking about material usage, which is something very important at this, as in sustainability, all that is very important, I feel. So I feel schools, the buildings should be examples of what you want to teach them. So the materials that you use in your school, you can use solar power generated schools. Then recycled, as in there can be walls made of recycled materials. So things like that could be added to your architecture. And one of my favorite projects in India is Nisha's Play School in Goa. So that is, most of it is built using recycled materials and things. So I think it lets the child imagine and experience the spaces. So I think through digitalization, we expect the same. You experience the same feel. Yeah, I just wanted to add that point.
So we'll quickly go to Dr. Varghese Pandalukaran, because here so many issues of what you call pedagogy and even using this platform as a venture, using the digital and the physical, integrating the physical aspect. So we'll have a quick word from Dr. Varghese Pandalukaran, because he's also working on some transformation of the pedagogy in the new digital world.
You want me to come in?
Yes. Just a final word.
Okay. So it was a very enjoyable evening, because a lot of fresh ideas are flowing into the. Basically, I imagine that there should be a change in pedagogy to match this, to really support this kind of changes. Pedagogy has to change. We are sticking on to a very old pedagogy, which is not allowing children to. There was a discussion about till reaching creation, but we have to venture, giving all kind of experience to venture. And this is possible with minimal digital support, digital connectivity. It is possible, and this is what something which we in our institution are trying to implement. We can, for example, give some kind of tasks for the children, which they do in the nature, and they can come back to report. These kind of new pedagogies, will be empowering the children, and it will be suitable for new environment, emerging environment. Be it that imagine the COVID scenario continues to persist, then we'll have to find this kind of pedagogical solutions also, not only technological, not only the other kind of solution. Traditional way of teaching, it's the right time to change. Our pedagogy is very, very old. We should imagine, we should maybe, very old means we can also go back to the Buddhist times of in India, where they were teaching in this particular way. Venture, but this has to be reinvented and reintroduced in the country, and I imagine this is a solution for the whole world, not only for India or for the whole world. So we have to initiate this particular. We have a tradition of teaching the world. India has a tradition of teaching the world, as somebody has already mentioned. And now this is a very old way of teaching in Buddhist times, but this has to be reintroduced in the country. And this is the pedagogy which is fitting to this particular new times. I don't take time. This is very late in the evening. So I thank all the persons who just spoke in this and put their ideas and synergize it together. We imagine that we'll be able to represent these ideas to the government and responsible people. The Rajagiri Round Table is meant for synergizing the policies, or we give policy recommendations at the national level or international level. So I hope Sri Kumar will be doing that part through his magazine, our Education Observer, that is Pallikudam, the Education Observer is our magazine, and Pallikudam High School, which we, you have it.
You can all see it.
Yeah, so these are the vehicles which of transformation which we design for the country and for the world. And I repeat once again, along with the change in every other sphere, the pedagogy has to change. It is the right time to change the pedagogy, because with the current pedagogy, we cannot go much ahead forward, because it's a changed world. The world requires entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial minds. I don't imagine that just entrepreneurs, those who can engage with entrepreneurship. Rather, every learner has to be entrepreneurially oriented. That is the new world. And therefore, we have to equip them with the right pedagogy. And this is the time to change the pedagogy. I encourage and I tell the governments and all stakeholders, private or governmental, to engage in this, think in this line of changing the pedagogy, which is suitable for our times.
Okay. So I think Monolita is still there. Would you like to give?
Yeah, I
Yes.
had to just
Yeah.
get up for a bit.
Yeah.
Dinner time for children calling. Actually, it's very good that Dr. Varghese went before me, because I wanted to talk about the relationship of pedagogy and the physical space of school, physical space of learning. Just as what he's talking about, that it really needs to change. And this is something over the digitalization, I felt even more. There are entire school system today, and I think it is everywhere, is that we expect a certain age group to have a certain median capability of learning, on which we grade them as to whether they can go up to the other grade, and or should be kept behind in the same grade, and stuff like that. And it's great. And this is something I have thought of from school, when I was a school child, and all the way through till now, that how do we expect one 7-year-old to have the more or less the same reading ability as another 7-year-old, have the same math ability as another 7-year-old, have the same art ability as a 7-year-old? How do we think of it like that? Whereas what I see of children and what I saw of me as we grew up is that one 7-year-old can have really good math, of almost even like a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old, but can actually have the reading ability of a much junior kid. So we need to, and it used to be my vision that we would have a school space where we would have these corners of interest, and there would be no age group, and children could go based on their ability and interest, and they could indulge in learning. And this is something which actually digitalization can facilitate, because it can give access to these great corners of learning to children who are capable. Joanna was talking about the brighter students, and the brighter students were, even through the conventional pedagogy, if the teachers cared, they would open up these new windows for them, and they would tell them that, okay, class 7 reading, you are very good at that, let's read much higher. So digital can actually give access to things which cannot be within your immediate realm. And that is a pedagogical challenge which I think digital should really take up.
So thank you. Actually, I wish the discussion could continue, because it's so important to all of us. And basically, it's about making the childhood so interesting and happiness filled. So that should be the ultimate goal, whether we are going to use the digital technologies that Girish is mooting, like highly advanced technologies, or whether the kind of architecture that Pradeep is talking about, the combination. And I mean, ultimately, it should make the child happy. It shouldn't put so much pressure on the parent, and it shouldn't put so much what do you call hardship on the part of the teachers also. But at the same time, there is a need to look at a fundamental change of our pedagogy, and that's what Dr. Varghese Pandalukaran and also Joanna were talking about, and they are trying to bring out that kind of a very significant change through their discussions, and I'm sure something will happen because now we have an international team working. So I'm sure that for all the problems that were talked about, there are solutions. And I'm once again thankful to Pradeep because you are the person who first brought me into this topic, and I'm really thankful to you. And yes. So we'll continue with this offline. There is no harm in connecting with us. We can mail to editor@rajagirimedia.com if you want to write something in our magazine. So that was the way we connected. Pradeep and I connected. So let's take this platform forward and this idea of good quality education and blending happiness into our curriculum. So that's a great thought we can part with.
One point I have,
Yes.
To add on to Mr. what Girish said about the PPP model. There's enough funding available in India if you channelize CSR funds in the proper way, which is highly essential, I think, because the corporate world needs all these people when they come out. So that is there, but a lot of it is channelized into a lot of other stuff, which I think mandatorily each company above certain turnover or something that should be said. There should be said that it should invest in education as a percentage of the thing, maybe 5% or 25% or whatever, depending on. So it is possible. Funds are there. It is the intent has to be there. That's what I meant. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you all, and it was a very interesting session, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope all of you have really gained from and insights from this. So we'll continue this into the next month. So thank you all.